Hey, howdy, folks. In the last 2 or 3 or 4 years or so, you may have heard quite a bit about accessibility, especially if you're in the Microsoft channel, you're in the Microsoft realm, and especially even more so if you're working with like Power Apps and any of those like Microsoft solutions. I think Microsoft has made accessibility a top priority. That's why it's been on a mission to like democratize the whole concept of making things accessible for people with disabilities, right? So that's why you may have heard a lot about accessibility much recently. But then, how many people actually understand what it really means? In my personal opinion, I don't think a lot of people know what accessibility is, and I also think a lot of people don't care for it, unless they work with people with disabilities or they themselves have some sort of disability, right? But for the most part, accessibility is something that is ignored, and it shouldn't be. It must not be, and there are many reasons why. First of all, when you, for example, in Power Apps, when you create an app, I think the general assumption is that our users are able-bodied. They have vision, they have hands, and we'll just create this very slick interface with all these like nice buttons and text boxes and whatnot, and we'll make data entry for users a breeze, right? So and that's a very noble intention, and for the most part we succeed. But then think about the users who have some sort of disability. What if they are blind? What if they have not very good motor skills? What if they're an amputee, they don't have a hand? How would those people interact with the app that you've built for them? And that's where the whole concept of accessibility comes into the picture, because accessibility, generally speaking, in very simple words, it is a set of functions. It's a concept that makes electronic devices like a phone, right, or a computer or a tablet. It makes those devices accessible to people with disabilities. So a blind person, if they have a smartphone, which they do, so and again, I'm going to digress a bit here. In the past, whenever I've made some videos about like his cell phones with people with disabilities, especially blind people, there would be one person at least who would say, "Hey, this is a dumb concept because blind people cannot use cell phones because they cannot see." And that's a very naive misconception, because vision or no vision, it doesn't matter. Thanks to accessibility features, a phone can be used by a blind person, because like what really happens is, yes, the blind person cannot see, but they can still hear, right? If they can hear, they can use accessibility features on their phone. On the iPhone or on Apple products, it's called VoiceOver, and on Android phones, I believe it's called TalkBack. I may be wrong though. But anyway, so all big manufacturers, they have these accessibility features built in that make the use of these apps very, very easy for people with disabilities, especially blind people. So now, when you're building your Power apps, you may have seen, so when you do like your app checker thing, you've probably seen that you get some accessibility errors, right? And it says, hey, they're missing accessible labels in your controls. And it also gives you some tips as well. And raise of hands, how many of us ignore these, right? So the reason you shouldn't ignore them is because these accessible labels are very helpful to people with disabilities, especially blind people, because they depend on voiceover to read these labels and tell them what these controls are, what this app is doing, what am I really looking at, right? So, that's what I want to show you, how all of that works. So I've made this really simple app. It doesn't function. It's just a screen right now. The submit button doesn't really work, but it's just a bunch of fields, and the idea here is that, hey, you're an employee somewhere, and you have to submit a request for hardware or software or accessory. So you come to this app, you enter your name, you enter your job title, you say what type of request it is, and there's a field, hey, are you a contract employee? You answer that, and then there's a pen control as well, where you just enter your signature and then you click submit. right? So for an able-bodied person with vision and with hands and fine motor skills, an app like this is a breeze. But again, think about someone who is blind, someone who cannot see. How would that person interact with this app? How would that person submit a request? Because guess what? This is the only way they can submit requests. So how would they use this app on their phone? Because they cannot see. So are there other ways to do it? Yes, there are. So let's start with
11:21 p.m.
I've turned on voiceover on my phone, and that's why my phone is speaking to me everything, right? And also, once voiceover is on, it expects certain gestures to navigate through all the options, right? So it's not just a simple swipe and then so you swipe through all the screens and you then double click the app that you want, but there's a certain way to navigate through all the options, and for that it expects certain gestures. So, and again, I think I said this already. I'm not so since I have full vision. I don't use voiceover on my phone, so I'm not very proficient with this system at all. So you'll see me struggle through it, and I'll make some mistakes. So bear with me here. But just so you know, anyone who's blind, they know how to use this extremely well. They are fully proficient and they're just so quick with it, and they interact with voiceover and the apps on their phone very, very easily. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is
11:22 p.m.
oh, I gotta do reflector first. Okay, let me set that up really quickly. Hey Siri, voiceover off.
Voiceover off.
Okay, all right. Let me start reflecting my screen here. And I know I'll have issues, so let me quit this first. Try it again. All right, and then we will reflect. And I should actually show the gestures that I'm making. 8720. Okay. So there's that. All right. So what I'll do now is I'll turn on voiceover again. Hey Siri, voiceover on.
Okay, I turned on voiceover.
All right. Okay. So now I have to do some very special gestures. So the first one to go home is, I believe I do. No, failed. Swipe up a little bit.
Listen.
No.
Listen.
Damn it.
Listen. Listen.
I'm listening.
Listen.
Ah, God damn it. Okay. So I have to do a little.
Listen.
Okay, wait for it.
Listen. Listen.
Okay, let's try 1 second. Hey Siri, unlock phone.
I can't unlock your iPhone for you.
Yeah, I know. Okay, all right.
Listen.
Let's try this again.
Listen.
Wow. See?
Listen.
Okay, I think I'm gonna edit all of this.
Listen. 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 Listen.
All right, let me really quickly. I knew this would happen, so I don't want you to suffer with me here. So swipe up to go home. Okay, immediate swipe a short distance with one finger, releasing. Okay, locate the bottom of the screen and touch it for a very short time, so you hear a quiet tone and feel a haptic vibration. Immediately swipe up a short distance with one.
Listen. 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 Button.
Oh my God. Okay.
11:25 p.m.
Finally. Okay. All right. So now
Double tap to open.
there's a slight delay here. Okay. All right. So now you will see that the KLM icon is selected and it read out loud to me what that app is, and it also told me that I should double tap to open. I'm just going to swipe through the rest of the phones, the rest of the apps till it tells me when I reach PowerApps. Okay, so I'll just go swipe.
KLM. Edit mode. Games folder. A primer. One new item. Double tap to zoom. PowerApps.
All right, so there we go.
Double tap to open.
I'm going to double tap it.
PowerApps. Exit accessibility demo.
Okay, let me just get out of
Exit
here first.
accessibility demo.
Okay, so this is my screen.
Accessibility demo app. Author. Venkatrao. Environment. Venkatrao. Co. Default. Button.
So I can just swipe through all of these if I want to go to some other app, right? But luckily, this is the app that I want. So I'm just going to double tap it. And I can double tap anywhere, right? Because it doesn't really matter. So now I'm going to again swipe through. And I may be doing this wrong, but I'm just doing what I know. So here, let me just go through these options again. So the first thing it tells me is I'm at the request screen, which is this right here. I call it the request screen. I could have done a better job of adding more details here because, yes, it's a request screen, but request screen for what? I could have said request hardware, software screen or something like that, just so the person knows they're in the right app.
Name.
Okay, so we're on the name label.
Text field.
And now
Double tap to edit.
There's a text field. What does that mean? Okay.
Job title. Text field.
There's another text field. What does that mean?
Double tap to edit.
There you can always assume that, okay, so the label before this was job title. So maybe this is where I enter my job title in this text field. But again, it still can create confusion, right?
Request type. Hardware. Shows pop-up.
It shows pop-ups.
Use the Enter key to expand or collapse the drop-down, and use the up and down arrow keys to change the selected value. For touch devices, use touch and swipe gestures to explore the drop-down. Double tap to expand.
All right, so I double tap to expand.
Selected. Hardware. List start. Software. Accessory.
So this is still okay, because it does read out the labels to me. So this shouldn't be a problem. Now, I go on to the next one.
Button.
Oops, sorry.
No. Use the Enter accessory.
Okay.
Shows pop-up.
Start from here again.
Use the Enter key to expand or collapse. Are you a contract employee? No.
Now, it just read the label of the field, right? So what does the no mean? Is it really related to the label previously, or is it something else? Again, I don't know.
No. Checkbox.
So
Submit. Button.
I can just, so a lot of these fields can be confusing because they don't have accessible labels. Also notice that it completely skipped the pen control. It may be a bug or something, but if you cannot see, you would never know that there's actually a pen control there. Let's try this again.
Checkbox.
If
No.
I go
Are you a
up
contract employee?
now,
No. Submit.
see how it just completely skips it. So things like this are what can make the experience for a blind person very, very cumbersome, right? And they would have to put a lot of effort, and they may have to maybe reach out to someone else and get their help to fill up this form. So now, now that we've seen how VoiceOver works and how it works, especially with PowerApps apps, and what happens when you don't have accessible labels, let's go back to the app and see how we can improve this. Okay, so the first thing we can do is, here, let me get out of this. Alexa, turn on desk lamp. 11:30 at night, lights go off. Okay, so the first one right here. What we'll do is we'll add the accessible label under advanced, and we'll say, all right, so this one is enter your full name here. Okay, so that's what we'll call it. Job title would be enter your job title. Okay, request type. So even though it reads out labels or the drop down values, it's still nice to just be like, this is where you select the request type. Options available are hardware, software, and accessory. Right? So that's our drop down. And here, so what is this? This is a toggle button indicating whether you are a contract employee or not. Defaults to no. Toggle to yes if you are a contract employee. Right? Something like that. Okay, so let's add this one does have an accessible label. So let's see what it does if we add one to it. Enter your signature or draw your signature in this area with your finger or a stylus. Okay, and then submit. We'll say where did the accessible label go? I guess it doesn't have one, huh? Because it just reads the label of the button. Okay, so this one doesn't have it. Okay, so we'll say save and we will publish it. All right, and let's go back, let's recheck. And now all the errors are gone. Okay, so we just have one tip, which is, hey, add another input method. Just because the person who's using this app, they may have bad motor skills, or they may have hand tremors, or they may be an amputee. So using their hand may not be an option. So anyway, okay, let's go back into Power Apps. Let's do the whole reflector thing again. I wonder how long this video is right now. Okay, so reflector, here you are. All right, so, hey Siri, voiceover off.
Okay, I turned off voiceover.
I need this to be quick, that's why I turned off voiceover. I'll turn it back on in a second once I start reflecting. 2073 and okay. Okay, so now let me open, wait, I'm gonna just get out of here first. Hey Siri, voiceover on.
Okay, I turned on voiceover.
Okay, so
Listen.
Damn it.
Listen. Listen. Button. Listen. 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 Listen.
Oh, there we go. Goodness.
KLM.
All right. Okay.
Double tap to open.
Gonna go into
Games
Power
folder,
Apps.
Primer. Zoom. Power Apps.
Double tap anywhere on the phone.
Power Apps. Menu. Road Warrior for some
Oops.
more detail. Accessibility demo app.
Double tap anywhere on the
Accessibility
phone.
Are you a contract employee?
Okay, I don't know
Use
where I
the
went
part
there.
request screen.
Okay, so did it download the new app? I don't know. Oh, it didn't download.
Exit accessibility demo. Search. App list refresh.
Okay,
Refreshing
I'm gonna
app
refresh it
menu.
first, right?
App list apps
Because we just
custom
made
vision
some
app, more details.
changes.
Accessibility demo.
Okay.
Accessibility demo. Exit accessibility demo.
All right, so let's see now what happens. Okay, so if I start
Request
swiping,
screen. Name. Enter your full name here.
now
Text field.
see how things changed.
Double tap to edit.
It says enter your full name here and text field. So now I know that I can start entering
Enter
my
your full
name
here.
right here.
Text insertion point at end. Enter your job title. Text field.
Now again, with the job title,
Enter your job title.
I know that
Text
in
field.
this text field, I can enter my job title,
Double tap to
right?
edit.
Go next.
Request type. This is where you select the request type. Options available are hardware, software, and accessory. Hardware shows pop-up.
So now I already
Use the
know as
Enter
a
key
blind
to
person
expand or collapse the drop-down.
what my
And
options
use the
are,
up and down
right?
arrow
So
keys to change the selected value.
I don't need to
For
go
touch
through
devices, use touch and swipe gestures to explore the drop-down.
all the
Double tap
options
to
to know what those options are, right? So I know that I have 3 options and I need to choose one of those. Okay, keep
Use
going.
the Enter key to expand. Are you a contract employee? No.
Okay.
This is a toggle button indicating whether you are a contract employee or not. Defaults to no. Toggle to yes if you are a contract employee.
Right?
Checkbox.
So I'm gonna just
No.
double tap
Enter
somewhere.
your full name here. Text field.
And for some reason it went back
Double
up
tap to
to
edit.
full name. It may be some weird quirky thing within Power Apps. I don't think it's supposed to do that, but let's just go with it. So we were here,
This is a toggle button
and now
indicating whether you are a contract
let's
employee
keep
or not.
proceeding.
Submit button.
Skipped the pen control again, the pen input again. Again, maybe a weird bug. But anyway, so hopefully this gives you an idea of how accessibility works, right? So for a blind person, they need to know what these buttons are. And since they cannot see, they rely on accessible labels to understand what kind of fields they're interacting with, what kind of
This is where you
information
select the
is
request type.
is being expected
Options
from them.
available are hardware, software, and accessory. Use the Are you a contract employee?
And you know what's really like interesting is that since they're blind, they don't necessarily need to keep the screen open, right? So they can actually 3-finger tap.
Screen curtain on.
They can keep the screen curtain on, and then they can still
Use the Enter key to expand. This is where
See?
you select request type. Enter your job title.
they can still work with the app without actually looking at it. I mean, they cannot look at it anyway, but for that reason, they don't need to keep the screen on. And how it's beneficial, now no one can be looking over their shoulder to see what they're doing. So, so these are all these features, different features that ensure that a blind person can safely and securely navigate through the app. And for these reasons, we need
Screen curtain off.
accessible labels. And yeah, so that's why, like, if you're building Power Apps, just make sure that you add accessible labels. It's very, very helpful for people with disabilities, and it makes their experience much easier and much more pleasant.
Screen range.
Anyway, wow, long video, and sorry you had to like watch me struggle through those swipes. It's just that weird like little that one gesture that I cannot, for some reason, I just struggle with it so much. And anyway, hopefully you'll keep accessibility in mind the next time you create an app. And also don't assume that all of your audiences are able-bodied, that they have vision, they have fine motor skills. It's very possible that they may not. Okay, so anyway, okay, I'll stop here. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye.